And this is Weaponized.
So it's been 75 years since Kenneth Arnold's sighting started the modern UFO era. And people, they remember the flying saucer part of it, even though that's not what he described, but the nuts and bolts craft that he supposedly saw and nothing else. But high strangeness goes back to the beginning of the modern UFO era. You can't just have a UFO incident by itself. There's often a lot of other stuff, including his case, right?
Yeah, because I remember several years ago, Kenneth Arnold's daughter, Kim Arnold, began writing a book, and she started putting out feelers. She went on radio shows.
So Kenneth Arnold, it's one of the most famous UFO cases of all time because it was said to have coined the flying saucer term.
Right. June of 1947.
However, that's not how he described the craft. It was just a reporter, like two saucers on top. What he was saying is it skipped like that. So like as if you threw a saucer, that's just, so everybody knows the Kenneth Arnold story. That's how the term flying saucer, saucers have been seen for a long time prior to that. And that's not what he saw, but go on.
Correct.
So Kim...
So Kim Arnold described something very different that what her father, had experienced. Number one, Kenneth Arnold's original description was that these objects were reflecting the sunlight as they moved down the Cascade Mountains as they were going from north to south. What Kim Arnold put out was that after a lot of thought, Kenneth Arnold decided that these objects were actually emanating light.
Self-luminous.
They were pulsating these, he called them bluish white light. These were not reflecting sunlight. So these things were actually pulsing light. Secondly, Kim Arnold reported that they started having these inexplicable paranormal effects in their home. Kenneth Arnold, after his sighting, she described an orb that sort of suddenly appeared in their home and went past the two daughters, Kim and her sister, and then went down into the kitchen past Kenneth in their home. Also, weird noises and sort of some poltergeist activity. She also described that Kenneth Arnold had changed his mind about what these objects that he had originally seen. And she described things like he thought that they might have some sort of biological content and they might be alive. He also associated with these objects with somehow being associated with humans after they die in the afterlife. So there was a lot of very weird activity associated with the original nuts and bolts Kenneth Arnold story that nobody heard about for decades. And the whole sort of flying saucer meme took a hold in the press, both in the United States and globally. And suddenly we had all these nuts and bolts phenomena being described as flying saucers, even though Kenneth Arnold never had any intent on reporting flying saucers. But all of the paranormal stuff was completely ignored. And, I've speculated to myself and to others that what would have happened if Kenneth Arnold had come right out and said, these objects were may have been biological. They were probably self-luminous. They were emanating these sort of flashes of light, may have been biological, may have been associated with the afterlife, quote unquote. Can you imagine what the legend of UFOs would look like now if that had been promulgated with a lot of force in the media in the late 1940s?
Well, nobody. It would be totally different in the sense that is so far beyond what a human being is ready to hear that it's like it would be completely different because we wouldn't have heard about it in the same way. You've got this hardcore pilot. He sees craft. I can see him thinking, oh, it's glinting, because that's the natural thing. You think that's the light source, the sun. But after some thought, it didn't quite look like that, huh? So I can see that transformation going. The public? Nah, man, that's not going to fly. That's too far for me.
It's what we learned at the ranch. The paradigm when I entered the topic was the standard ET craft from other planets visiting Earth, checking us out. That was the dominant paradigm then. It's probably the dominant paradigm now. It's the dominant sort of focus of the new UFO program. They don't call it UFOs anymore, but they're going to study flying saucers. They're going to study sensor data, lights in the sky, radar returns, and that's going to get them to the bottom of the mystery, when in fact, they're only studying the mountaintop. There's so much more that is intrinsically linked to this. The overall message that how my attitude changed was from the ranch. This is way more complicated, way more wondrous, and more interesting and mysterious than just lights in the sky flying around.